They laughed at my dreams, until I proved them wrong. My grandfather, a man who saw the world in shades of gray, once told me, "Boy, some people will only believe in what they can see, touch, and measure. Your dreams, they can't do any of that, so they'll call them foolish." I was 17 then, a boy with a head full of impossible ideas, and I dismissed his words as just another one of his philosophical ramblings. Now, at 32, as I stand here with the world watching, I see he wasn't rambling at all. He was giving me a map. My story began not with a bang, but with a whisper. A whisper that grew into a roar in the quiet corners of my mind. It was about flight, not in a plane, but on my own. I wanted to build a personal flight system, a jetpack, a suit, whatever you want to call it, that was small, efficient, and, most importantly, affordable. My name is Aiden, and this is the story of how a little boy's daydream became a global spectacle. It started in my garage, a space that smelled of motor oil, sawdust, and the sweet, intoxicating scent of ambition. I was 20, fresh out of college with a degree in aerospace engineering. My parents, bless their hearts, thought I was just messing around. "Aiden," my dad, Robert, would say, his voice a mixture of concern and resignation, "why don't you get a real job?" Lockheed Martin called again, but I couldn't. I was possessed by this idea. It was an itch I had to scratch. My first prototype was a complete disaster. It was a contraption of aluminum tubing and repurposed jet ski engines. It looked like a confused robot built by a child. When I fired it up, the noise was so loud my neighbor, old Mr. Henderson, thought a plane had crashed. The thing barely lifted off the ground before sputtering and crashing back down, singeing the grass. I remember looking at the charred patch of earth and feeling a cold dread. Was this what my life was going to be? A series of small, failed explosions. I wish I could tell you that I kept my head high and soldiered on, but I didn't. I felt defeated. I was 21, and the world was beginning to feel heavy. My friends were moving on with their lives. My best friend, Sam, a guy who had always been my biggest cheerleader, was thriving at a software company. He was buying a house, getting engaged. He was a grown-up, and I was still playing with toys in my dad's garage. The real turning point was when I ran out of money. My savings were gone, and my parents had a limit on how much they could help. I needed an investor, someone who believed in my vision. And so I started knocking on doors. I refined my presentation, created a detailed business plan, and practiced my pitch until the words flowed out of me like a well-rehearsed song. The first few meetings were brutal. The looks on their faces were a mixture of amusement and pity. One investor, a man named Mr. Thompson, a titan in the tech world, listened patiently and then leaned back in his chair, a wry smile on his face. "A personal flight system, you say? Mr. Aiden, this is not a comic book. This is real life. What you're proposing is not just impractical, it's impossible. People would laugh at it." He said it with such finality, as if he had just explained the law of gravity to an ignorant child. I left his office with my head hanging low, his words echoing in my ears. People would laugh at it. He was right, of course. They were already laughing. My friends at a bar one night, after a few drinks, started making jetpack jokes. "Hey, Aiden, can you fly us to the moon?" One of them, Mark, said, and they all erupted in laughter. It stung. It felt like a betrayal. I smiled along, but inside, a knot was tightening in my stomach. What would you do in that situation? Would you give up? Would you listen to the practical, logical voices around you? I thought about it, for a long time. I thought about giving up, about applying for that job at Lockheed Martin, about living a normal life. But the idea, that whisper from my youth, wouldn't let me go. It was a part of me now. So, I decided to build something that was impossible to laugh at. I went back to the drawing board, this time with a new resolve. I stopped thinking about investors and started thinking about proof. I needed a proof of concept so powerful, so undeniable, that no one could call it a comic book anymore. I spent the next 2 years living in that garage, a hermit in a world of my own making. My social life evaporated, my family worried. My mom, Sarah, would bring me plates of food, her eyes filled with a quiet sadness. She never said it, but I knew she was thinking, my son is wasting his life. I poured every ounce of my being into it. I taught myself advanced composite materials, experimented with new propulsion systems, and designed a lightweight, powerful jet turbine from scratch. The garage was no longer just a garage, it was my laboratory, my sanctuary, my prison. The prototypes started to get better. They went from charred patches of grass to short, wobbly flights. I'd strap myself in, take a deep breath, and hit the throttle. The feeling of lifting off the ground, even for a few seconds, was pure, unadulterated ecstasy. It was the feeling of defying gravity, of defying the doubt of 100 people. Then came the day I knew I was close. I was 26, and I was about to test the fourth major iteration of the suit. This one was sleek, and looked less like a clumsy robot and more like a suit of armor. I took it to an abandoned airfield I had found. I set up the cameras, took a deep breath, and hit the ignition. The twin turbines screamed to life, a beautiful, terrifying sound. I lifted off the ground, slowly at first, and then I ascended. Higher and higher, I hovered in the air, a few feet off the ground, completely stable. I felt a surge of triumph so powerful it brought tears to my eyes. This was it. This was the moment. I started doing longer flights, higher flights, and practicing maneuvers. It was exhilarating, but it was also terrifying. One small mistake, one gust of wind, could send me plummeting to the earth. I kept it all secret. I didn't want to show it to anyone until it was perfect. I wanted to reveal it on my own terms, not as a desperate plea for investment, but as an undeniable fact. The moment came on my 30th birthday. I had finally perfected the suit. It was stable, powerful, and I had a decent flight time. I decided to live stream my first public flight. I didn't tell anyone. I set up a small stage in an open field, and I went live on a small channel I had started years ago. The first few minutes were just me, in a field, in an odd-looking suit. The comments started to roll in. What is this? Dudes cosplaying Iron Man. Is this a joke? Then I turned on the turbines. The sound was deafening, the power palpable. I lifted off the ground, slowly at first, and then I climbed. I didn't just hover, I flew. I flew in a wide circle, then I did a figure 8, and then I climbed higher, until I was just a speck against the vast blue canvas of the sky. The comments changed. The laughter was gone. It was replaced with awe. Holy s, is this real? Who is this guy? When I landed, the camera showed a look on my face that I can't describe, a mixture of relief, triumph, and pure exhaustion. I took off the helmet, and looked into the camera. My name is Aiden, I said, my voice hoarse. And this is Project Daedalus. The next few days were a blur. The video went viral, exploding across the internet. News outlets were calling, tech investors were lining up, and old Mr. Thompson, the man who laughed at my dreams, left a dozen voicemails. I ignored them all. I didn't want his money anymore. I wanted to build this on my own. I ended up partnering with an engineering firm that had been following my progress. They were a small team, but they believed in me. We scaled the project, and in 2 years, we had a fully functional, consumer-ready personal flight system. We decided to reveal it to the world at a major tech conference. As I stood on that stage, a man of 32, with the suit beside me, I saw faces I recognized in the crowd. There was Sam, with a look of pure, unadulterated pride. And there was old Mr. Thompson, in the front row, his face ashen, his smug smile long gone. I didn't say anything to them. I didn't have to. The suit spoke for itself. When I flew across the stage and back, the entire room erupted. The applause wasn't for the technology, it was for the dream, for the boy in the garage who was told he was crazy. Looking back, the laughter wasn't a barrier, it was a fuel. Every time someone laughed, every time someone said it was impossible, it just made me work harder. It was a constant reminder that I had to prove them wrong. What do you think about the power of doubt? Does it motivate you or discourage you? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story, be sure to give it a like, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more.